meeting of the Syracuse Planning Commission. Greetings of the new year to everyone. We will begin our public hearing schedule momentarily after we take care of one item of business, namely the approval of the minutes from our last meeting in 2022. Minutes have been circulated. Is there a motion for their adoption or motion to revise them?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor of the minutes as distributed, please say aye. 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 Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Minutes are approved. Allowing us to move into the public hearing portion of our schedule, our meeting this evening. For those who are unfamiliar with the process, as each application is announced by member of staff, we ask that the applicant or their representative come to the podium in the front of the room, provide their name and address for the record, and then a brief overview of the application. Following questions, comments, discussion from the commission members, we will extend an invitation to members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the application, and then likewise an invitation to those who wish to speak in opposition to the application. And where comments are offered in opposition, we will encourage the applicant to return to the podium to address the comments made in opposition. Those offering comments will be limited to 3 minutes in duration for those comments. So please keep your comments concise and to the point. And with that, I believe we are ready to begin. Jeff, if you would announce our first public hearing, please.
Good evening. The first public hearing is AS 2213. A sign waiver application to waive the type, height, area, and number of signs in order to install 2 media mesh signs and 3 window lettering signs on property situated at 235 Harrison Street. The City of Syracuse is the property owner and Center State CEO is the applicant. This is a continuation from a public hearing the Commission held on December 12th. During which the Commission questioned the character and scale of the proposed 896 square foot wall sign. The Commission agreed to continue the public hearing tonight to afford the applicant an opportunity to present a revised proposal. I did receive revised plans on January 6th, which I have provided to you this evening.
Good evening, thank you. Brian Bouchard with CHA Consulting, project engineer. Also with me is Andy Wright, project architect, and both Kevin and Lori from Center State, CEO. As Jeff mentioned, so the previous meeting we discussed this as the sign waiver to include various signs between the window graphics and the 2 media mesh signs. And we talked about a variety of different things in terms of how this project is unique and the justification for the sign sizes and the technology that we're using. Starting with, being a city-owned property operated by Center State CEO, the Tech Garden's a non-for-profit, supporting entrepreneurial startups, the type of economic development that this brings to the city at large, and obviously the fact that this particular signage that's requested supports business graphics and other messaging aside from just one particular business entity or product that's being advertised. Hundreds of individual businesses that operate within the Tech Garden at large, and then conveying messages otherwise for public events, seminars, business development opportunities, etc. And more specifically, that this property is located within an area between the Hotel Syracuse, the War Memorial, and the On Center, which is in need of revitalization as part of the forming of almost a convention center type district within the area. The purpose of it also is to obviously activate the streetscape and bring interest to the building, which the Tech Garden operates. So very specifically what we looked at last time was sign number 1 and its size. The sign was 896 square feet, which is placed on the front facade facing the corner. And what I've shown here is a graphic of the original size of the sign, along with the red outline that you see in the respective sizes. And essentially, if you flip to the second page, which is the new graphic, What we were able to do is reduce the height of the sign by a full 3 feet, which was 1 full panel by its entire length, so the 28-foot length. So we've removed 3 feet in height, and what this still allows us to do is maintain the structural supports at the top and bottom of the window glazing that we have, and also maintain visibility through those windows without impacting the way that the structure needs to be hung, or the paneling or the glazing that you see behind it. We also talked about how this is a media mesh sign, so part of it is transparency, so it's not technically blocking those windows. The mesh isn't like an LED screen, it's actually 60% transparent. So this still will allow light into the second and third floor of that. So in whole, we've reduced approximately 10%, but still believe that we can maintain the same amount of interest and activity level that we were trying to accomplish with the larger sign. So coming back for your questions and comments for the smaller sign sets.
Thank you for the summary and the update, and thanks especially for the responsiveness to the concerns that were raised at the last meeting. We do appreciate the effort to accommodate those concerns. Let me pause and see if my colleagues have questions about the updated presentation that you just provided us.
Sure.
All set. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Are there individuals who would like to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come to the podium. I see no one rising to speak in either category, unless you're going to revise your presentation now. So I think we're in a position to close the public hearing and entertain a motion for action on the request. So the hearing's now closed. Is there a motion for action on this application?
Motion to approve with a negative declaration.
Second.
Discussion. I, for one, would like to comment on the quality of the rationale that was provided last time. You summarized it again tonight, but it provides, I think, a really strong basis for the Commission's action on this application, from ownership of the site, the nonprofit status, the nature of what takes place within, the advance consultation with the most directly affected property owner, the business to the west, the hotel. Sometimes the Commission needs to prod an applicant to have those conversations, and it was gratifying to see that you had taken that initiative already and noted that in the last meeting that we had. So as a basis, or I'd like to add my comments as part of the basis for the motion that has been made and seconded for the record, and encourage any other conversation or discussion that my colleagues might have before we vote.
Just that what you've said should be part of the resolution, but also it should be reflected clearly in the minutes as well, that the unique circumstances related to this property and this signage sets it apart from anything we've seen to date and likely we'll see in the future.
Truly, not just distinctive, but I do think unique set of circumstances.
And also to thank the applicants for responding to our concerns.
I'll just piggyback off of that. We laughed about it last meeting. Me being the only millennial here, it actually is pretty exciting to see something. Oh, hello. It's refreshing and also exciting to see something of this magnitude. And thank you for working with us and considering the size. And look forward to see how this plays out.
We appreciate that. Thank you too.
Any other non-millennials like to speak?
It's the time of day. Earlier today, I was the youngest one in the meeting. Now I'm put in my place. But just a request or a question for the commissioner making the motion. Are we granting the waivers, the area?
Yes, because there's 4 waivers, correct?
Right, area,
So granting the
sign,
Can we get- go
location.
back? We go back, Steve, or no? and like say each of them?
I think just reference.
Yeah, just referencing that, yeah.
The number.
By the, granting the 4 waivers. Yep. Thanks, Walter.
Thanks for clarifying that. We'd hate to get all through this and not have that specified.
You all be commended for your efforts.
Appreciate it again. Thank you.
Additional discussion?
All set.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The application AS-2213 is approved. Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you all very much.
Our next public hearing, please.
The next public hearing is R2258, a re-subdivision to combine 3 properties situated at 112, 116, and 120 Inverness Place into one new lot, and Fordock is the owner and the applicant, and the properties lie within a residential Class A1 zoning district. I would just note to the Planning Commission that the proposed lot has frontage on Inverness Place of approximately 172.4 feet, as opposed to the 116.4 noted in your report.
Thank you for the clarification. If the applicant is here?
Hi, how you doing?
Very good.
I'm usually in this room for different reasons, so it's interesting.
Give us your name and address.
Ann Fordock, and it's 120 Inverness Place, Syracuse, New York, 13219. And do I say anything, or do you ask questions?
Perhaps you weren't here. I ran through a little
I'm sorry.
what you need to know if you're at the
Sorry.
podium. So we just ask that after you provide your name and address, you provide a brief summary
Okay.
of the application that we are considering tonight.
So I'm Deputy Commissioner of DPW, and we have the new sidewalk program where residents pay in to the program. And so I have 2 separate tax parcels. So I would basically pay in twice. And so I don't have a sidewalk, I'll never have a sidewalk, which is fine. I think it's a great program, I want to pay into that. I just realized that there's probably many residents in the same boat as me that have continuous lots that just don't happen to be combined, so we're gonna get hit with that twice. So I did bring it up to assessment and zoning, and this was the solution that was presented to me. It will make things easier in the future if I ever wanna like make my garage bigger or something like that.
And that's the sole purpose for the re-subdivision?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. If you hang around a short while, we're going to invite others who might want to speak in favor of the application or opposed to it. If there are any in opposition, we would invite you to return to the podium and address the comments in opposition.
Okay.
And then there's a very high chance the commission would act on your application this evening.
All right, thank you very much.
So with that presentation complete, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, come to the podium, provide your name and address and comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward. We have no additional speakers on this application, so we will declare this hearing closed and entertain a motion on this re-subdivision, R-22-58.
To approve with a negative declaration, noting that this is a non-traditional block pattern, and also the proximity to commercial uses make the combination of lots reasonable. Outside of that motion, Jeff, I just quick looked at the new map, and the number's wrong on the map, so somebody should talk to the land surveyor. That's where the math is wrong. It says 116 on this. So before it gets filed, someone should check that.
The street frontage, okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
Yes, but then.
If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Abstentions. R-22-58, the re-subdivision is approved. Thank you. Our next
The next public hearing is R-2259, a re-subdivision to combine two properties situated at 420 and 422 West Ostrander Avenue into one new lot. Roger Bradford and Michelle Gaynor and the Greater Syracuse Property Development Corporation are the owners and the applicants, and the properties lie within a residential Class A1 zoning district.
Good evening. Michelle Rush. I work for NETA. I'm over the vacant lot program, 101 Gertrude Street. 422 West Ostrander has been in Land Bank's inventory since October 2016. In April of 2022, the Land Bank demolished and decapitated a single-family home there, which resulted in a vacant lot of 33 by 162. The owners of the single-family home at 420 West Ostrander Avenue would like to purchase the vacant lot for additional yard space, and they intend to fence in the property and install landscaping. They also plan to remove their existing driveway, leaving a pathway to the handicap access ramp, and will install a new driveway on the west side of the house. These improvements will be done as funding becomes available. Merging the parcels will ensure that the property owner will receive one tax bill and that the vacant lot does not become orphaned. It will make the process of applying for driveway and fence permits easier. And also, the proposal offers the opportunity to put the vacant lot parcel back as a taxable and productive use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for the applicant?
All set, thank you.
Thank you. Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward to the podium. There do not appear to be any additional speakers. We will declare this hearing closed and entertain a motion for this re-subdivision R-22-59. Is
Second.
lots of seconds. What a nice job you did. Thank you, thank you. Discussion on the motion.
I think it's important to note that the lots individually don't meet the minimum standard, so that if they were redeveloped, and it wouldn't be possible to redevelop them individually, but also that there have already been some larger lots created in the immediate vicinity.
Thank you for noting that as part of our justification for approval. Further discussion? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? R-22-59 is approved.
The last
Thank you.
I'm sorry? When you're ready.
Ready.
The last public hearing is AS 2211A, a sign waiver appeal to install a roof sign on property situated at 500 Erie Boulevard East. Smith Building LLC is the property owner, Matthew Paulus is the applicant, and the property lies within a central business district, office, and service district. The zoning administrator denied a sign waiver earlier in 2022. I'm looking for the date, September 2nd, 2022, and the applicant filed the appeal on November 29th, 2022.
Okay, thank you. The applicant is here.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Paulus. I am the president and founder of Paulus Development, as well as the owner of the Smith Building. Paulus Development is a local real estate development firm here in Syracuse, born and raised in Syracuse. The company is. Syracuse is home to us, and we love doing historic preservation. That's our business, and we had done one other project previously in the area at the Dietz Lantern Factory over in the Park Avenue neighborhood on the west side. I introduced myself as the owner.
Sorry to interject. Can you just say your address for the record, please?
Business or personal? Doesn't
Whatever you
matter.
prefer.
The business is located at 225 Wilkinson Street. I'm a City of Syracuse resident. I'm over in Bradford Hills.
Thank you.
I call myself the owner of the Smith Building, but that's probably not the right term. When you do historic preservation, you are more or less a steward of these buildings. You accept the history, you accept its past, and you do your best to repurpose it and make it fit our communities going forward. The Smith Building was a very special project to me, quantitatively and qualitatively. It was a building, it's the little red building that could. It was built for the Erie Canal originally in 1888, the original 3-story part. It was later connected to its adjacent building. I think it was 1910 that building was constructed. But it was built for the Erie Canal. It survived the Erie Canal. It survived the highway infrastructure in the 1950s. And, my vision behind this was it was going to survive the removal of the highway. And it would be a bright spot in an area in this city that has a big future. And we're very proud of the work that we did. This project did open up last year, but it is a historic preservation project. And with that, we sign up and agree to certain terms and conditions for being historic, and we take pride in following those things. Some good, some bad, and sometimes members of the community like it, and sometimes they don't, but we embrace it fully, the good and the bad. And in the case of this appeal, we inherited a roof sign that we were required to preserve and to ensure that it maintained the historic integrity of the building. It was important enough to the State Historic Preservation Office as well as the National Park Service, and we followed through on those guidelines. We have requested the use of it. The original vision contemplated this. We did not specifically, get into details on its use, but this has not been a material change to our redevelopment of the site or our planned project at all. And we have formally requested, but I appreciate everyone's time to consider our appeal of the decision.
Thank you. Question for the applicant regarding the appeal.
You didn't include with your application to staff the part 1 of your tax credit application. I just see the part 2, or the exhibit C, I think it is. Yeah, part 2. So the only thing I could find, and I'm assuming this is the period of significance, 1886 and 1910.
The period of significance, we had utilized the period of significance being the time that the Smith Restaurant Supply Warehouse operated within the premises. So I think that was the 1940s, correct me?
I'm asking what the National Park Service.
Correct. Yeah, I think the reference to our features and the historic preservation was the period of time that the Smith Restaurant Supply operated within the building.
So you don't have the part 1 with you?
I don't have it with me this evening. I think the reference, and I know you're familiar with very, very familiar with historic preservation. I think that the intent of including the part 2, we can obviously make the part 1 available. It's public record.
I'm just looking for the period of significance because it appears to be 1886 and 1910. But regardless, even if it is involving part of the time when the Smith Restaurant folks were there, it would seem the billboard being installed in the 70s makes it a non-contributing feature. So even though you propose keeping it and the Park Service agreed, there's no reason why they wouldn't usually in terms of these reviews. It doesn't seem as though it's necessarily a historic artifact that has significance overall. And that said, even if it did, it would probably typically include the copy on the sign. So, Smith Restaurant Supply would be the entire thing. Think of the Citgo sign in Boston. There's no Citgo gas station underneath it, but it's a Citgo sign and its content. Right. So it would seem that the historic preservations really are an aside to this particular issue, and it's really more from a zoning perspective, what's allowable from a signage perspective, at least without documentation of what the real period of significance is. Because again, it seems like based on how the part 2 is filled out, it's 1886 and 1910, which is fairly typical of how these things are written from a part 1 to a part 2. So I'm inferring that, but if you had the part 1, I was just going to look at that for a minute. So,
Could I respond if that's okay?
sure.
So the references, and I said 1888, 1886, so the references in the part 2 are references to the vintage of the building. So that's a description of work and referencing each specific building, not necessarily the period of significance. You know, in regards to, opinions regarding what is, and we come across this all the time, everyone has a different opinion, but, the applications were submitted and approved, both Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 by the State Historic Preservation Office, as well as the National Park Service. And as part of that conversation, this was a requirement for us as part of historic preservation, whether the period of significance was there or not. I mean, it was, and that's why we included the Part 2, just as part of that to describe the existing signs. The requirement for them specifically was to refurbish the existing steel that was there and keep the sign on top. So that was not our decision. That was a decision imposed upon us. But we can make the Part 1 available. We can make the National Register submission as well available.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Questions for the applicant?
I think with the missing document, there's not much we can do going forward. We don't have all the variables needed to come to a conclusion.
Okay.
My question would actually be for council who's not here tonight. So continuing that would be helpful if the commission agrees to continue the hearing.
We may well do that in due time, but if there are no further questions for the applicant at this moment, let's pause, and as we always do, see if others in the audience wish to comment on this public hearing. So if there are no additional questions for the applicant right now, that is what we will do. I will call for those in the audience who wish to speak in favor of this application. AS-22-11A, the sign waiver appeal for the 500 block of Erie Boulevard. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward. And is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward. Well, that didn't net anything, but we wanted to offer the opportunity. And now it seems as though my colleague's comment would be appropriate for the commission to consider, namely holding the hearing open and in order to obtain the additional document, what's it called?
Either the Part 1 or the National Register draft nomination, which will list the period of significance.
Okay. If you could provide that to the staff, they will see that we get that. And
actually, the Landmark Preservation Board staff might have it because the State Preservation Office usually shares all that documentation. So you could check. I mean, they can submit it. But you could also check with Kate.
Yeah, well.
So right now, maybe the onus is not on the applicant. We'll check in-house to see if we have this.
Oh,
so to
the
speak.
onus is on the applicant.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yes,
that. I was like, whoa,
I'm
hold
sorry,
up.
you, Jeff, was that?
I will check, and if I don't have it, I'll let you know.
There you go.
We'll send it in the morning. Not a problem. It's a quick.
Oh, gee.
Thank you.
Hey, the New Year's resolution, huh?
Thank you for the time to consider this. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll maintain
probably
this
follow up
hearing
with you.
open, and it will be on our next meeting agenda, which is 3 weeks hence, and we will have some additional information in hand to consider in advance of that time. So thank you for the
Thank you,
presentation this evening.
Thank you.
So this hearing remains open. That ends the public hearing portion of our schedule, but we have additional business to deal with this evening, and we can move right into the new business section.
The first new business item is a special permit modification to a transitional parking lot, SP 0519M1. It's a minor modification to modify the site plan to facilitate new construction on property situated at 414 to 416 West Onondaga Street. Housing Vision Consultants Incorporated is the owner. Dana Shiflett from Housing Visions is the applicant, and the property is split zone between residential Class B and business Class A. The applicant is requesting to modify the site plan to facilitate interior and exterior renovations and the construction of a 3-story addition to an existing 3-story building. The scope of work includes partial site demolition and removal of 16 off-street parking spaces directly behind the existing 3-story building, and the construction of a 68-foot by 48-foot 3-story addition, along with interior and exterior renovations. The proposal will result in a mixed-use building with approximately 7,750 square feet of office-related space on the first floor and 20 dwelling units on the second and third floors. The proposal necessitates 36 off-street parking spaces. The site plan illustrates 77. The applicant did revise the site plan in response to review comments received from the city transportation planner, which are in your agenda. The City Planning Commission did approve a special permit for transitional parking on June 13th of 2005, and this proposal does not necessitate any new or expanded waivers.
Before we let the applicant make a presentation, the only reason we're seeing this is because of the special permit for the parking. We would not necessarily have seen it under project site review?
If there were not a special permit, you would see it as part of a project site review.
So this takes the place of it?
Yes.
Okay. That's why we're revising the zoning ordinance. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Chris Snyder. I'm planning manager with Passero Associates, which is located at 232 West Main Street in Rochester, New York. I'm here with Diana Yakimowski from Housing Visions, and I'm presenting tonight to you the redevelopment of 414 to 416 West Onondaga Street. The overall proposal, this is one piece of a scattered site redevelopment project that Housing Visions is taking on the west side of Syracuse. So there are about 40 properties involved. This is, I think, one of the largest ones. The others are going to be mostly 2 families, I believe. And Diana can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like. But this specific proposal is to convert an existing vacant office building into a mixed-use affordable housing development. The existing building is 17,400 square feet. We're proposing an addition to the rear of it. That addition will be 3 stories.
You can disengage the mic if you want and bring it around and point to things on the map if you wish.
Great. So it might be easier to sort of envision it from the elevation view here. You can see the existing building here, and then the addition onto the rear. The existing height of the building is 30 feet, 11 inches, and that's what we're going to match with the new addition. In addition to that, we have some site changes that are going to be made. Those include all new privacy fencing at Chenard Avenue with a landscaping buffer strip. There's going to be a new dumpster with 6-foot tall screening, enclosure, 2 bike racks, accessible parking, restriping of the lot, and new landscaping throughout. This will result in the reduction of parking spaces because we're putting that addition on the back. So right now we have 93 parking spaces. We'll have to remove 15 parking spaces to accommodate that building addition, but we still have plenty of parking to meet the zoning requirements. I believe our requirements are 37 spaces. We're doing 20 units, so 1 for each unit, and then there is an additional 17 units for the commercial space on the first floor. And I can take any questions.
So you would have excess parking
Yes.
over what's required by the regulations. Okay. Can you say a little something about the residential units and size and?
Sure. Did you want to speak to that? Okay.
Hi, I'm Diana Yakimowski. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate Development at Housing Visions. We're over at 1201 East Fayette Street, Syracuse, New York 13210. So there'll be 20 residential units on the second and third floors, all one bedrooms. They're roughly around 700 square feet each of them. On the first floor, the front half of the building is going to be set aside for a training center for Jubilee Homes. So we are partnering with Jubilee Homes on this development. So the front half of it will be a training center for them, about, I want to say 6,500 square feet. The rest of it on the first floor is going to be office space for Housing Vision. So we have a property manager on site. There's a community room that's required by the state of New York. There's a bike room. There will be mechanical space. All the other common features will be on the back side of the building. So the bedrooms are all be 60% of AMI and below in the project.
So when you said mixed use before, it's housing, it's office space, commercial office space, but it's yours, and housing, but there's no retail or anything in there?
No retail. So it's the front half, it will be Jubilee's Training Center. So then in there, we will fully build out the space for them, and they will be able to offer training services to the residents and to the neighborhood as well.
Okay.
I have two questions. The first one is the transportation planner explains that and I think you might address this, but I just want to clarify. The site plan appears to show that there are gaps in the fencing line on the north property line. Were you addressing that when you talked about the fencing?
So yeah, I think the,
Well, let me finish though.
yeah, no problem.
So the area is to be fenced and secured with a fixed vertical object. Do you get that? Or is that what you might address?
Yeah, so that comment I think is actually referencing the west property line because of the way that and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I believe they're referencing the west property line where there is a fence and gate between the two properties. And the concern, to my understanding, was access, not having access between those two properties.
Here he says north though, so maybe we need to clarify.
Yeah, I think that may require clarification because right now I think, I visited the site before coming here today. It looks like there is just one piece of fencing on the north side. We are replacing that with privacy fencing. So it's actually going to be a higher quality privacy fence, not chain link, which exists there right now. 4 feet tall with landscaping on the property side. So if he in fact is referencing gaps in fencing now, that will be corrected because we're going to be putting a new privacy fence, a decorative privacy fence all the way around that side of the property.
Okay, and then
I'm sorry for interrupting. You could certainly condition any approval
Yeah.
upon meeting requirements from
the transportation plan.
And that would be acceptable to us.
Okay, and then just to clarify, he also says no wheel stops to prevent cross access with adjacent parcels.
I believe there's wheel stops there now from going to the site, but they aren't a barrier between the two properties.
Okay.
There's actually a gate and fence at that side of the property, I believe, on the west side that he's referencing. If you look at the plans there, we do show on the site plan a section of fencing that is going to stay. And we don't plan on removing that.
All right, and this question may be for your colleague or partner. When you say affordable housing, like, can you just kind of clarify that a little bit? What do you mean by that? Like when you use that term?
So affordable housing, so the programs that most of our projects are through the low-income housing tax credit program. So the program allows affordability through setting area median income. So all these units are 60% of area median and below. So they'll be affordable to anybody at 60% of area median and below. A one-bedroom apartment is allowed a one-person or two-person. That's about where the limits are. So typically our one-bedrooms are usually a single individual. We do have couples, but the majority are just a one-person household.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for the applicants? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is not a public hearing, it's a new business item, so I'm not calling for those who want to weigh in on this. But looking to my colleagues on the commission, is there a motion for action on this special permit modification regarding the parking lot?
remove approval of the negative declaration, just noting the resolution, the conditions that applicant says they've met with transportation planner, we just would like that to be the condition of the resolution, that those requirements will be met as part of the special permit.
Thank you.
So, go ahead. What do you need?
You can second.
Oh, second.
I'm just sitting back.
I didn't want to
so you can see it.
overstep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? SP-05-19M1 is approved. Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Our next new business item,
The next new business item is a minor modification to a special permit for a restaurant, SP 9622M2, to modify the floor plan and signage on property situated at 726 University Avenue, also known as 177 Marshall Street. Podamayanos LLC is the owner, and Mark Niederfer is the applicant, and the property lies within a business Class A zoning district. The applicant is looking to do some interior renovations to accommodate a new tenant, switching from the coffee place, Starbucks, to
how quickly they forget.
the Brooklyn Bagel. The proposal reduces the customer area to approximately 430 square feet. The applicant is proposing to install a 24.5 square foot wall sign. The proposal does not necessitate any new or expanded waivers from the zoning regulations.
Okay, thank you.
I do have hard copies. This was a late addition. If you need hard copies, I have it. Otherwise, it is on Dropbox and has been since Friday for your review. I did send copies to Chris and Rebecca Friday afternoon as well.
Okay, this is an actual reduction in the customer area, correct?
Yes.
Are there questions regarding?
So,
Okay, in that case, is there a motion for action?
Move approval with a negative declaration.
second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? SP 9622M2 is approved. We have one further item, a 3-mile limit in the town of Manlius.
Yes, when I get to it. The last item this evening is a new business item, a 3-mile limit subdivision review from the town of Manlius, 3S2301, to review the Lot 15 Town Center subdivision, to divide one property situated at 404 to 406 Town Drive into 2 new lots. The purpose of the subdivision is to create 2 commercial lots for finance purposes. The town of Manlius approved the re-subdivision on October 24th of 2022, and they made a negative seeker determination on that same date as part of their approval. The subdivision has been reviewed by the City Department of Engineering.
Great, thank you. In that case, are there any questions on the 3-mile limit in Manlius? No. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve with a negative declaration.
Second.
Second? Discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The Manlius 3-mile limit case is approved. Is there anything else for us to deal with tonight beyond the authorizations for the 30th?
I'm just not coming up with
Say
anything. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
We can take an intermission, we can come
We knew
back.
Sue wasn't gonna be here, so we kept it light. We pile it on for the next time we're not sure.
Okay, then, in that case, is there a motion for the 4 new cases for the 30th, and plus we have one carryover from the,
Before we do that, can I ask a couple questions about those? Real quick ones. So for the first one, this is a special permit to replace, repair automotive glass? Like, that's just not something you already do at a light-duty motor vehicle repair place?
Well,
It's currently a fitness center, right?
yes. It
But
is,
it does have an overhead door, and most of the work will actually be off-site.
Got you.
but it does require a special permit for light-duty motor vehicle repair.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was different. And the very last one, the appeal of the C of A. I happen to know this property intimately, unfortunately, but it's also being used as an Airbnb, which is not necessarily, as far as I know, a defined use in our ordinance, and I would therefore suspect a not allowed use. So how do we grapple with that when we look at it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because
Well,
some cities have actually
So
been
we've
trying
had
to
many discussions
stop
about that.
Airbnbs.
If you rent out your house, the whole house,
Yep,
I thought you
we
said
have no
cows.
minimum time limit for what constitutes a rental, I mean, you're allowed to rent out your house, right? So whether it's for a night or 30 days or 6 months, it's all treated the same in the zoning ordinance, okay? But if you rent out a room,
they
that's
do.
different. So
It's
that's very
actually
different.
advertised to rent by the room or the whole building. You can go to the Airbnb
Yeah,
site and
yeah.
see it.
So that is that's number 3 or 4 of the amendments that will have to be made to rezone as soon as it's passed.
No, 100%.
The proposal also requires a variance from the BZA, which is pending. The BZA has not reviewed it yet, but there is a variance. And then, because the property is situated within the special neighborhood district, it will require a certificate of suitability if occupied, if it's non-owner occupied.
And it's not. They live in California.
So it will require a certificate of suitability, which is a potential mechanism to address any Airbnb
Okay.
operations.
And I was not here that first day with the Wentworth Terrace circus.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, yeah, you missed
But
it.
again, because I know this particular property well, I can tell you they were warned the day the sold sign went up and the day they started doing things at the property that they needed to get all kinds of approvals, including a certificate of suitability.
And I'm sorry, there will also be a certificate of appropriateness.
Right.
For
They were-
for the exterior.
Gave them the whole thing. I even have
Stairs.
the email to show when I sent it, because they asked. They were doing that, hi, we're gonna be good neighbors. Is there anything we should know? Funny you should ask. Yes, there is. So it's unfortunate because it's going to be very similar where they were told there were processes and they didn't follow them. And I believe they were also told as they were building this, they needed to stop and they kept going. So it's going to be very parallel.
Okay. All
So.
right. Well, in the meantime, should reach out to Jake and have a conversation.
Okay. And I do appreciate that. Hopefully we can address this. I understand from people on the north side that these Airbnbs are particularly problematic when they rent room by room. And it was interesting, the manager, I guess that's what they call these guys, for this one assured me that they also don't rent to local people. I was like,
That's kind of,
okay.
that's really legal.
because apparently people will rent a house in their own community to have a big party rather than have it at their own house,
Yeah.
which I have heard happens with really large, like McMansions in suburbs. People will, if they live in like the village core, they will go to the big suburb around it and they'll have a big party there. It's like, wow, I'm not sure what they say legally to protect them, but there's some wording that says this is for out-of-town visitors or whatever it is that they say. So just, to grapple with that, Dan, that's like, wow. So, I mean, given where this is, I could see where in the university neighborhood, some people might say, oh, you know, Duke's coming to town, let's not have the party at our house or go out to a bar, we'll just rent this Airbnb and we'll have the party there.
Yeah.
So,
But it can be problematic because where there's no ownership, there's almost guaranteed chaos.
yes, yeah.
I don't have a vested interest. Screw this place. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
fun and
yeah.
trash it and leave. Like, we don't want that.
Yeah, that's, again, I've heard on the north side, it's been particularly problematic for those very reasons. So, anyway, thank you. And I would now move to accept the public hearings for the next meeting.
4 new ones and 1 continuing, 1 from tonight. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of those authorizations, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Those are
like
good.
Scary.
Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Aye. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? We are adjourned.